So if you're watching this probably means that 2v8 is literally tomorrow, or 2v8 is close to starting, which I know a handful of people was pretty damn excited about. Same here, can't wait. So I thought it would be fun to give every killer a gimmicky, parallel, or creative partner that fits with that specific killer. What I mean by gimmicky or parallel, that basically means a killer who can relate to that specific killer, a killer who can relate to that specific killer's power or lore in some way, shape, or form, or even aesthetic. For Trapper, I chose Hag. So basically, if these two teamed up in the all-out chaos 2v8 mode, the parallel between them two is that the survivors will have to watch the floor at all times, or at least most of the time. Survivors watching the floors for traps and phantasm traps, which if either survivor connect to, they could be in pretty significant danger. With Wraith and Nurse, they're both technically lovers within the realm, so it'll be a Bonnie and Clyde type joint, just killer virgin with them two. So they just fit aesthetic wise, meaning that those two are lovers. They would just always kill together, I guess. For Hillbilly, I chose Bubba because they will just basically be soul brothers. Both of the parallels would be that they both have a chainsaw, so you just have two chainsaw crazy madmen in the lobby trying to saw you down together. Can't see it being pretty powerful power-wise, but it's pretty gimmicky in parallel. For Nurse, I chose Wraith. Like I said, they're lovers. They're the Bonnie and Clyde of the fog, so you know they would just always have each other's back. For Michael, I chose Ghostface because they're both technically stalkers, aka silent killers. Both of their powers are parallel to one another. They both have to stalk and be very discreet and silent about what they do, if it could give them the advantage and down in the survivor afterwards. I just think these two would just be pretty fun in the 2v8 mode, honestly, and this is the main reason why I can't wait until they branch out and hopefully add certain killers that can team up in the 2v8 match, because I think it will just be really fun to see Michael and Ghostface. Even though they might not be that powerful together, they still fit aesthetic wise and their powers are parallel, you know? They could fit together perfectly. I could just see a really fun Michael and Ghostface match happening on Haddonfield in the 2v8 match. But I don't even think Haddonfield could be a map in 2v8 because they will have to extend it, so chances of that happening, none. But I mean, there could always be other maps as well, of course. It's just a matter of how long will it take for them to add certain killers, because they did mention adding additional killers to 2v8 in the future. For Hag, I chose Trapper because, like I said, their powers will technically be parallel. You will have to watch the floor most of the time playing against them too, so that's where they have that certain connection. For Doctor, I chose Unknown because basically it will be hallucinations everywhere or somewhat everywhere. Unknown could teleport to his, but with Doctors, his would just spawn near a survivor. But they both have the parallel of hallucinations, even though they both work in different ways. Since Unknown could teleport to his, I can't really see that much chemistry with them at all. If they did team up in the 2v8, I guess from the survivor's point of view, it would just kind of make them go crazy and it would just be kind of fun seeing a handful of hallucinations from Doctor and Unknown just spawn everywhere. For Huntress, I chose Twins because I think lore wise, Huntress will treat Victor like a child, almost a child of her own. But the tricky part about this is that Huntress mainly catered to little girls, so I'm not sure how she would see Victor, especially since how Victor looks. But I still think potentially she would see Victor as a child, and Victor just might see Huntress as a bigger sister too. Well, a bigger additional sister since he has Charlotte. So I guess they could kind of fit lore wise. It's just a matter of Huntress having a soft spot for Victor, which I think she might have, especially since Victor would be helping her. And Charlotte will of course appreciate that. It's just that if Victor is technically on a survivor's back, wouldn't Huntress be technically throwing a hatchet at Victor? For Bubba, I chose Hillbilly because of course they're soul brothers. Their powers will be parallel to one another since they both use a chainsaw. For Freddy, I chose Doctor. For them is more lore wise because they're both genuinely evil. Freddy's done countless horrible things to children, and the Doctor has just done countless horrible things to his patients or victims in general. So they will have that connection of just being the more sadistic duo. Plus the thing about them too is that you can see their disfigurement, meaning they look way different from their normal selves in which they used to look like, which I say good for them because they're fucking evil. For Pig, I chose Honorable because basically their powers are pretty parallel to one another in a slightly different way, if that makes sense. Because basically when you face both of them, you have to always worry about managing something. For Pig, you have to worry about managing the timer on your trap and making sure you don't die. And for the Honor though, you got to make sure you manage your condemned for the point where she can't kill you. But you can be killed by both of them without having to hook them. It's just that for Pig, it's of course more passive since she's not doing it by her own hand. Honor also has to do the work of actually downing them in order to kill them. But you still have to manage something with their power, which I guess they have a connection with. For clown, I chose Dredge, specifically the Maurice skin. I guess they will be related because that's Clown's horse, so they will just have a connection lore wise, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure how Clown would feel to seeing Maurice in this state and not in her normal state, but there's no doubt that's his horse anyway, so I don't know, he might actually enjoy it. It might actually be a fever dream for him. That bottle shit got him tripping out, so he just sees Maurice like that. For Spirit, I of course chose Oni because, well, their family. Spirit being the daughter of the Yamaokas, while Oni is the ancestor of the Yamaokas. So of course you have that lore connection. For Legion, I chose Ghostface because they basically have the parallel gimmick wise, meaning that they're like mass stabby killers. Of course Legion won't be as stealthy as Ghostface, but they still fit gimmick wise, you know? Like, I know there were a handful of people around when Legion were coming out saying that Ghostface basically wouldn't come to the game because we have Legion. I honestly think Legion might look at Ghostface as one of their own, even though Ghostface of course has different tactics on how he uses his power, but of course they wouldn't fit power wise and rather just gimmick wise. For Plague, I chose Nemesis because technically they will have that power parallel in a way, but also aesthetic, because basically they can just make survivors cough with their infections. For Plague being, well, the plague, and Nemesis being the T-virus. Survivors are just constantly coughing the match, and yeah, that's about it. I believe they're the only two that can actually make survivors cough in the game. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. For Ghostface, I chose Michael because of the same reason. They're stalkers, aka silent killers. They have that power parallel with one another since they both have to stalk, so I think they will be pretty fitting for one another. For Demo, I chose Xeno because, well, they're both sci-fi creatures. They fit aesthetic wise, and I could also see power wise too, since they will just basically get around the map faster and pressure survivors around the map. I can envision this being a pretty cool time, honestly. It'll actually be really dope seeing both of them together, hearing different sci-fi creatures scream within the game. For Oni, I of course chose Spirit because they're family. I just think they'll be perfect for one another. For Slinger, I chose Leatherface only because they seem related. Like, I could definitely see Slinger in the TCM game, so I guess they will fit aesthetic wise, and of course power wise because, well, you know. For Pyramid Head, I chose Pinhead because they will both be pain lovers, so they both have that aesthetic, but both of them loving to not only dish out but absorb pain. It also fits since they're both just like higher power beings. Like, they're not simply just humans or creatures trying to kill you. They hold way more power than that, so that's why I also think they fit aesthetic wise. For Blight, I specifically chose Nemesis, but mainly the Birkin Blight, because with the Birkin Blight you could combine Nemesis zombies. For Twins, I chose Chucky because technically you have Victor and Chucky, or Victor and Tiffany, all of them just being little shits and running around together, killing survivors together. So I just think it will be perfect. Survivors would just constantly have to worry about two killers smaller than them trying to attack them. I just think that would be hilarious. For Trickster, I chose Skull Merchant because they will technically both be eye candy, so they fit that gimmick factor. He's got nice abs, she has the fat ass. Can't go wrong with that. For Nemesis, I chose Wesker because, well, they're technically from the same universe, Resident Evil, so they would just fit lore wise. I just want to see how it would look when you affect that survivor with both the T-virus and the Ouroboros. For Pinhead, like I said, Pyramid Head would be perfect since they're both pain lovers. For Artists, I chose Hag because of the lore parallel. They both were technically tortured by the Black Veil. At least I assume it was the Black Veil for Hag, cause I definitely know it was the Black Veil for Artists, but nevertheless, they both experienced a tragic fate. I guess you could say the same thing about a handful of other killers, especially Spirit, but they still have that same connection. So the connection between them two would just be through lore. For Onryo, I chose Spirit because, well, they're both spirits, so they will just fit aesthetic wise. I guess you could somewhat say they have a parallel in the powers too, since they could both get from point A to point B without being seen. For Spirit, she has to do that manually. It has a short duration of how long she could do that. Onryo could just teleport from point A to point B, but they mainly just fit aesthetic wise since they're both vengeful spirits. For Dredge, I chose the Unknown since they're both kind of like what the fuck, so for them it will definitely be aesthetic. Plus they're both kind of like the faces of fear in this game. I say these two are honestly the scariest killers in the game, in my personal opinion. So that's why I also think they fit perfectly together. I guess they just both hold the throne and having that fear aesthetic, so it's like you might as well put the two together, right? For Wesker, I chose Nemesis because they're from the same universe, Resident Evil, so they'll of course fit lore and aesthetic wise. If we really do see them team up one day, I wonder if Wesker can throw a zombie into survivors. Good question, right? But it's like it won't even be that useful because where are the chances that will actually connect with the survivor? But it will still be cool to see. For Knight, I chose Oni because they will both be ancient warriors technically, so they fit aesthetic wise. Kind of give me For Honor since you have a knight and then you have a samurai. For Skull Merchant, I chose Trickster since, well, they're both hot. From a power angle though, I honestly can't see them being too bad, because when Skull Merchant injures survivors with her drones, Trickster could just finish them with his blades, since they already be injured. So I could see some chemistry with their powers, but nonetheless they of course fit aesthetic wise. For Singularity, I chose Chucky because it would technically be artificial personality. They're both technically not real, or not real anymore I should say, for Chucky, since he was once a serial killer. But since Chucky is now a doll and Singularity is AI, they both artificial. But what makes them stand out is that they are artificial, but they have a ton of personality. I was even surprised hearing Singularity's voice lines for the first time and just realizing how much he can talk, especially hearing how sarcastic or merciless he could come off. And you know, Chucky is just Chucky. Chucky is just vulgar as hell. Chucky always had a mouth no matter what. So with these two, they fit of course aesthetic wise, since they're both not real, but it's funny that they have such personalities. For Xeno, I of course chose Demo because, well, they're sci-fi creatures, so they fit aesthetic wise. I feel like they would be perfect for one another. Two licensed sci-fi creatures. For Chucky, I just feel Singularity will of course be perfect. I really like the idea of them being artificial but also holding a lot of personality. For Unknown, I of course chose Dredge because what the fuck. For Vecna, I chose Knight for aesthetic factor. I just feel like you could definitely see the Knight in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, especially with his power. And well, he's a Knight, so there's already Knights in the dungeons on the map, and I don't think Vecna will mind teaming up with the Knight. You guys let me know what your favorite fitting duo is, or let me know a fitting duo that you have that's better than mine, or that you just had in mind. I know I'm off and on from time to time. I'm honestly just trying to plan different projects at the same time, and I just kind of get carried away, and it could be pretty exhausting. And also just how my schedule is since I have work, so I could get pretty held up. But I promise y'all, there's more projects to come. I just also really want to take my time on these projects and make the videos longer as well, so that could also be another reason why that could sometimes hold me up. That along with, you know, editing the video and just getting the video out. But please just ride with me. But anyways, how do you guys feel about 2v8 coming tomorrow or later on today, if depending on how long it takes to dish out this video? How you guys feel about 2v8 in general, I guess? Let me know down below. Love y'all. Take care. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. And peace.